Welcome to Cutoff Genes, the podcast that helps you find your truth using nothing but DNA. I'm Julie Dixon Jackson, and I'm a genetic genealogist, henceforth known as a Genie.
I am Richard Castle, the producer, and today I am the supporting actor since it is Oscar week.
You're the best supporting actor.
Oh, thank you.
You're not just a nominee.
I can't believe I didn't get nominated. They should have an Oscars for podcasts.
Do I need to talk you through this?
Oh, I guess then I would actually have to be in a movie or something, right?
Yeah, that would be necessary.
Not just a podcast. And I don't mean just a podcast, like it's lesser than. But maybe there should be some.
Podcasts of the future.
Do you think they're going to be podcast Oscars or podcast?
There are podcast awards. We clearly are not in the mix. Does that sound weird?
I would feel like I would end up being like the Glenn Close with like 7 nominations over my career and then nothing, you know?
Poor Glenn.
I love Glenn Close.
I do too.
Although you told me right before this began that once you heard that she was in Up with People when she was young, you started looking at her career through a different lens.
It kind of weirded me out. I don't know why.
So from what I remember, folks, Up with People was like a youth group that went around, toured, and they sang and danced, and they would go to schools and things like that and do concerts, right? And it was all very up with people. It was very, pro.
Yeah, in my mind, it all, and I know very little about it, obviously, except for there are occasional jokes that run through the community, but the theater community. But I have this vision of this kind of Stepford type situation where everything is good and there is nothing ever dark and there's no reality to it. I think that's the problem.
They sort of made fun of it on one of the Simpsons episodes where,
of course they did.
Yeah, so like this group comes to Lisa's school and she's so excited and they do this big exciting number with yo-yos, and doing like walk the dog and spinning and all that. And so Lisa's all excited to meet her favorite, Up with People star.
Person.
Yeah, Up with person. And she goes up to her and she's looking for Sparkle. I guess that was the name of the girl.
Sure.
And it's somebody totally different. She's got like a photograph of a Sparkle, and she goes, "Oh, you're not Sparkle." And the woman looks at it and goes, "That's the old Sparkle."
Oh my gosh! It's like it's a Menudo
it's
situation.
Menudo. Exactly.
Well, there you go. I wonder if that happened in Up with People. I don't think. Here's the thing. I don't think anybody had autonomy in Up with People. I think they were just an en masse group of happy people that were really up.
They were very up.
Okay, sorry, Up with People. I'm not trying to diss anybody. Please, no letters. or maybe you can.
Well,
maybe it'll be fun to hear.
Did you watch the Oscars?
Of course I did.
Yeah, so good, right? I mean, I love watching the Oscars.
Oh, I do
so
too.
Much fun.
I do too. My friend Amy and I have a tradition of watching the Oscars together every year, and the same thing happens every year, in which we start to watch it.
And there's alcohol involved. Clearly. No?
Well, Amy doesn't drink, but I had one glass of wine. Normally there is more involved.
I was going to say, the Oscars are much more fun when you have a little booze.
Yeah. We have a lot of really unhealthy food. So it's kind of gross because we're watching all these beautiful people on the red carpet and just feeling like sloth.
Yeah. Well, no, by the end of the show, I was thinking those people in that audience that have been sitting there probably for 4 or 5 hours, They must be so hungry because they haven't eaten in days.
Yeah.
And now
well, didn't somebody bring In-N-Out one year or pizza or something?
It was pizza.
Oh,
I think it was like Ellen or something. She ordered pizza.
Oh, of course she did. Yeah. Oh, Ellen, you're madcap. Amy and I always watch it, and we always get behind because she gets there at 4:00, and I have to rewind to the beginning of the red carpet because she has to watch the whole red carpet. Then it gets started late, and then we have to keep rewinding because we didn't hear something because one of us was talking, and we yell at each other, and it's an extravaganza.
It's a 6-hour affair.
Pretty much, yeah.
We always have to go somewhere else to watch the Oscars because we are cord cutters here. So we've only can stream it live, but we can't pause it. We can't rewind it.
No.
We don't have a DVR. So we always have to. We do the same thing. Like, oh, we got to see that again. Or what did she say? So we know we go over to our friend's house and watch it. With
wow.
them. Yeah, and it's fun.
Yeah. You know what? I don't remember the last Oscar party I ever went to.
Yeah.
Because Amy and I have been doing this for so long that we can't imagine. And when my daughter's in town, she's always there too. Okay, let's go on to some genealogy stuff and let's kind of tie it in with the Oscars.
Yes.
I have a story about Stephen King.
Oh, great.
See what I did there?
Yeah.
I didn't even plan on doing that.
Yeah, I mean, Stephen King hasn't won an Oscar, though.
No.
But maybe his movies have, because, The Shining.
Did The Shining win something?
I don't know, but when I just, on a
There's a
side note,
corrections
I just saw
corner.
Betty Buckley in Hello Dolly here at
Yes,
the Pantages
and?
Theater. She's very good.
Okay.
But all I could think of was, she was in Carrie.
Yes.
She was the gym teacher.
Dirty Pillows. Yeah. Oh no, that was wait.
Oh,
wait.
Amy Irving?
No.
Oh, Piper Laurie.
Piper Laurie.
Yeah.
Laurie, guys, look her up. Okay, so guess what? Stephen King and his wife Tabatha have made a gift through their foundation to the New England Historical Genealogical Society.
I love that. I'm from New England.
I know you are.
Yeah.
See? It's a full circle moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the Boston-based organization is the nation's oldest and largest genealogy society. It says it will use the gift announced Tuesday to develop educational programming. Today, how timely. And fund a curriculum in family history for public school students.
Good for him.
I know.
And Tabatha.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thanks, Tabby. I bet she hates that.
Tabby.
Like the cat.
I've never met a Tabatha except for, Samantha Stevens' daughter.
Have
on
I?
Bewitched.
Oh, I have a cousin named Tabatha.
See?
I don't know if she's a witch.
Well, you know that all the witches on Bewitched had to end with the A sound, right?
Why is that?
I don't know, but they were all that way. That was like a rule.
How can you tell me that and not tell me why?
They never explained it, but there was Andorra, Aunt Hagatha,
You're
Tabatha.
right.
They
What
all
about
had it.
what about the men? What about the
No,
warlocks?
not the men.
Okay.
Just the women.
All right.
Yeah.
Good to know. Wow.
Well, I mean, considering her father's name was Maurice, I don't think that Maurica.
Mauricia. Okay, whatever. So yeah, thanks, Stephen King, for that.
Yeah, thank you, Stephen King.
You write good books and you do good things.
You terrify me and then you inspire me.
I love it. Okay, one more thing. Here's a corrections corner or a clarification corner. What's in a sidecar? Remember, we were talking about a sidecar.
Yes. Are you going to make me one after this? Is that it?
No, but what do you think is in one?
I'm going to guess gin?
No.
No?
Think brown liquor.
Oh, I don't like the brown liquors. Don't
I don't
like
either.
Me.
I
Yeah,
know. Me
yeah.
neither. Gin is my favorite. Why am I telling people
I'm
this?
like Kahlua. I don't know.
No, cognac, orange liqueur, triple sec, and lemon juice.
Oh,
Boom.
I wouldn't like a sidecar.
Neither
actually.
would
No.
I.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
I would need a side bucket.
Side bucket. That's what I'm going to call myself now. I'm
my
Richard
side
Castle,
bucket.
and I'm Julie's side bucket.
Okay, not to digress, but I want to go back to the Oscars for just a second.
Well, they're over.
I want to go back. Time travel once again. So there seems to be this huge onslaught of suspicion over Gaga and Bradley Cooper after their Oscar performance because people can't fathom how they can have that kind of chemistry and not be in a relationship.
Well, that seems ridiculous to me because I've grown up in the performing arts community
Right.
where people can, fake that. It's
Yes.
called acting.
It's called acting, everybody. But people are like, oh, you can't fake that. Did you see the way they were looking at each other? I'm like, every moment of that whole thing was choreographed.
Yeah.
Right down to him getting up and moving his mic stand.
Yes.
And going and sitting next to her. That was all practice, guys.
And it was beautiful. I thought it was
Yes, it was
really the
beautifully
highlight
done.
of the show for me.
Yeah, definitely.
It was the most beautifully staged performance,
Yeah.
of any of them. But what I will say is you cannot fake chemistry.
No, you can have chemistry, but again, you
that
don't
doesn't
have to
mean
be
you're in a-
acting on it.
I have chemistry with a lot of people that I've never slept with.
Me too. Maybe I should have.
Maybe I should have. No, but you know what I will say about Lady Gaga and Bradley Cooper is that what I loved about it was watching two pros. I
Yes.
just felt like, wow, they are doing a good performance, and they're not on set. Like they're at the Oscars, they're at an event, and then they have to shift into the gears of like
Being
now,
on stage.
Yes, being
Yeah.
on stage, and I thought that was that would be hard for me because when I know I'm going to be performing,
And you're sitting in the audience?
yeah,
Yeah.
I would get nervous.
Yeah,
you know?
I thought that was a really good moment. I
Yeah.
thought that was a smart thing to do.
It was.
All right, let's go. Let's go take a break.
If you're enjoying Cutoff Jeans, please subscribe, rate, and review. Now, back to Julie and me.
Okay, here's something interesting.
Thank God,
Because everything else is so
because
boring.
I'm falling asleep. No.
Okay, so in Kennewick, Washington, a young lady by the name of Alexis Sanchez went to the Mid-Columbia Library expecting to pick up a book, but when she walked into the library, she stopped dead in her tracks. She said, "Why do they have a statue of my dad here?" She literally, there's a statue in the entrance of this library, and it looked exactly like her dad.
Oh, that's kind of creepy.
Isn't that crazy? So she walked up closer to it and realized it was a display of Kennewick Man, the famous 9,000-year-old skull found on the shore of the Columbia River in 1996, a.k.a. the Ancient One.
So are you saying that she thought that her dad looked like a caveman?
Yes. Well, yes, he looked just like this. It apparently could have been her father.
Wow.
Yeah. So it inspired her to learn more about her heritage. So she took a 23andMe DNA test. And she could only get the maternal haplogroup because you can't get a paternal haplogroup because you don't have Y DNA. So she had her dad do a DNA test as well.
She went to the zoo to visit him in the monkey cage.
Stop right now. You just stop that. Stop
I'm sorry,
it.
Like, how do you mistake? It's like going to the
Okay,
Museum of Natural History.
It's not like cavemen in the Geico commercials where they look like what are they, Cro-Magnon or something?
Yeah, Cro-Magnon. I'm thinking of like Rudolph's Shiny New Year with the character. There was like a caveman played with the voice of Maury Amsterdam. I don't know why I'm thinking about this.
What is happening?
But that, there's a statue of that, and you go, oh, that looks like my dad.
It looks like a relatively
a relative.
A relative. It looks like a relative.
Yeah.
Okay. What's going to happen is I'm going to post a picture of him on the page, and y'all can see what she saw.
Okay. All right. Good.
It didn't look like a Geico caveman.
Thank God. That's something else, though.
So, anywho, so he took the test as well. So 2 years ago, he was related to Native Americans who traveled down the Orange. Oh, so when his results came in, one of the things said that he was related to Native Americans he looks like he's Mexican, which is Native American.
Oh, so now you're calling me a racist because
Stop
I said,
it. It's not what. Okay, related to Native Americans who traveled down the Oregon coast. And she was like, oh, that's why I feel so close. I love the Oregon coast. Why can't I pronounce Oregon? It's not origin. I love the Oregon coast. Okay, moving on.
And I love Origin's skin product.
I love oranges.
I love organs. And
I love Orange County.
There you go.
All right. For years, she's been teasing her father about looking like Kennewick Man.
Yeah. Well,
why wouldn't she?
Like I just teased him.
Exactly.
And I didn't know.
Poor dad. In May of 2013, she posted a side-by-side comparison of her father and Kennewick Man on Instagram. I will post that.
Yeah,
guys.
I'm going to check that out.
I know. Everybody wants to see it. So then, fast forward to last month. She rechecked her 23andMe account, and she said she was literally screaming on her couch. 23andMe had updated information linking her family to Kennewick Man, to actual Kennewick Man, linking her family to Kennewick Man. Essentially, her father shares paternal lineage with the Ancient One.
Come on.
With that skull.
Wow.
If you remember, scientists analyzed Kennewick Man's DNA and discovered in 2015 that Kennewick Man was Native American. Therefore, Javier, who is her father, and Kennewick Man belong to haplogroup QM3. A haplogroup is a group of single DNA strands that all share a common ancestor at some point, connecting a Kennewick Man to Kennewick Man.
This blows my mind. Talk about we talk about recessive genes, but talk about a strong gene that would get that she could walk into a library and see a statue and say, that looks like my dad, and then have it turn out that he actually resembles this.
Well, look at there are certain races and ethnicities that certainly bear a when you see somebody, even like people will say to me, "Oh yeah, you look Australian," which is not an ethnicity, by the way.
Right.
I'm British, but certain people look like German people look like German people.
Yeah, no, I know what you're saying. Yeah, yeah.
So why wouldn't that? It makes perfect sense.
I also have this little weird fantasy, that if I went back in time, that basically people would all pretty much look the same. I'd see the same faces. They're just like how many different faces are there?
We would all have been brown as well, by the way.
No, I don't mean going back that far. I just mean even if I went back 200 years ago, right?
Yeah.
And I walked the streets, I would see people who looked like the people I know. They'd just be in different clothes,
Yeah.
like how many faces are there? And maybe this is really naive of me because I'm not a scientist, but I just wonder.
You're not?
No, I'm not at all.
Okay.
But I think that when I see people, I've traveled a lot, and I see people, and I'm like, oh, that person looks familiar. Oh no, I saw someone that looked like him.
Doppelganger. We're back to doppelgangers.
Well, maybe we are, but just going back in time, I just wonder, and not necessarily that they're related to somebody today. They could be, but just that they have that similar look.
Yeah.
You got a kid with red hair and freckles, and you're like, well.
Yeah.
There's probably one of them all over the world.
Absolutely. Everybody has a remember? Before I knew that photographs took an hour to take, way back in like the late 1800s when photography first...
Oh, the exposure. Yeah.
Yes. Before I knew that, I thought that people back then didn't know how to make expressions.
Oh.
Because they'd been sitting there for so long, they were told not to move, and that's why they looked so deadpan and just miserable.
Think about the painted portraits of people, like where they had to stand there for hours and hours as somebody painted them.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
That's why they were hardly ever smiling.
Yeah. So I used to think that, but until I realized, well, it's because... they were told, I think it was undignified to smile or something in pictures. I think
might have been.
That was a part of it too. But everybody looked like they didn't know. And also when you think about it, like how animated we are in pictures now with because of like selfie technology and stuff like that, everybody has learned how to make their face look exactly the way they want it to look.
Yeah, I hate when young girls do the little like pouty lips and to show their cheekbones or whatever. It always looks like they're being baby dolls or something, and it makes me uncomfortable.
Yeah, but everybody does that now, and they've found like we all like know what our better angles are and how we look. And people didn't have mirror face back then either. Even though there were mirrors, but nowhere near as many mirrors that there are now.
Right.
It was like a luxury to have like a mirror back then. So, and you wouldn't spend time in it just realizing what your best side was and your best angle was.
Those poor people that didn't know what their best angle was.
I envy them.
Or what their light, how to find their light,
Yeah. I envy that though. I do.
Right.
Only a little bit.
Well,
I was going to say I would do that. One of those. I would do that Pioneer. Remember the Pioneer family thing that they used to do? I would do that for a week.
Really? I would never.
As long as I had a roof over my head.
Yeah.
I would never do Survivor or any of those where you have to be in the... As long as I had a roof over my head and blankets, I think I could do it.
Yeah. And room service.
I don't think they had room service in Pioneer days.
And a bathroom with good lighting.
And plumbing.
And indoor plumbing.
And electricity.
But I don't want a bathroom without indoor plumbing and good lighting because that doesn't really work. I don't want to like have to be, peeing in a hole in the ground and seeing how good I look.
They probably didn't have mirrors then either.
Yeah, you certainly wouldn't put one in the outhouse. How did we get here?
The first house that my parents built had an outhouse.
Really?
Yeah, I think that says something about Australia. The difference between because it was the 60s, the mid 60s, but there was still they chose to have the toilets outside still. Not all of the houses, but in the first one I lived in.
They had an outhouse in the outback? Is that what you're telling me?
I didn't live in the outback. I actually lived in a suburb of the city.
And in the suburb, they had outhouses.
Yeah.
Wow.
They were called dunnies.
Dunnies.
Backyard dunnies.
Wow. Well, we had our own septic tank in the backyard in Massachusetts.
However did we get to this?
I don't know. I think because we're full of Anyway.
Okay.
Kennebunkport Man. Oh, no, wait. That's...
Kennewick Man.
Kennebunkport. I'm like, who am I? The Kennedys?
Wait, we were still talking about Kennewick Man.
Yeah.
Wow, that's the story of Kennewick Man, everybody.
Yeah, it's a fascinating story, and I want to see that picture of the two.
Yes, I will find them.
The statue.
I will find them.
The statue and the man.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Now let's talk about, I have a book nook.
Oh, okay.
This is a good book nook.
Good. Anything that doesn't have to do with outhouses.
Oh, let's get over the outhouses, for heaven's sake. Okay, this is a good one. My friend Amy, who was on the show, that was the NPE, that is my friend whose mother took her to lunch to tell her father wasn't her father.
Yes. Yeah, we did the interview right here in this room.
Exactly.
She's very, very nice.
Precisely. She gave me this book a while ago. Actually, she said, you've got to read this. And I read it, and it's fascinating. A lot of people don't know about this. Okay, the book is called Uncommon Knowledge, and it's by a lady named Judy Lewis. So Judy Lewis was in her 30s when she discovered Hollywood's best-kept secret. She was the daughter of Clark Gable and Loretta Young.
Wow.
Yes. So here's what happened. Loretta Young, who was the girl next door, very Catholic, and was a single woman.
She didn't marry Clark Gable.
She did not. Clark Gable was married to somebody else when
Okay.
she was conceived.
I gotcha.
And while they were making a movie, what was it called? The Wild. How appropriate.
Yeah.
So she went into hiding and had this baby and sent the baby to an orphanage for, I think, like a year or two. I can't remember. It's been a while since I read it. And then she adopted her back.
Oh,
And
she
raised
was
her as her
birth mother.
adopted child, but she was actually her biological child.
That's crazy.
I know. The
Kind of
poor
cool
thing.
though, like in a way, like that's.
Well, I can't. This book is so fascinating because she talks about growing up in Hollywood and what it was like. So she tells all these great insider Hollywood stories,
Yeah.
and talks about how she looked. If you see, I'll post pictures. She looks like Clark Gable way more than Loretta Young.
What's the name of the book?
Uncommon Knowledge.
Uncommon Knowledge.
And I'll tell you the reason that title came about was she was going to marry somebody at one point, and she was riddled with the fact that she was adopted and didn't know. I think she may have known that Loretta Young was her mother at that point, but she didn't know who her father was. And she said, I can't possibly marry you. I don't know who my father is. And he said, well, I know who your father is. It's common knowledge. It's Clark Gable.
How did he know?
That's how because everybody knew but her.
Oh my God.
Everybody in Hollywood knew about it.
Well, I mean, that's kind of horrifying. And that same kind of thing, actually, with in that interview you did, she was very upset. Your friend was very upset that like everyone in the family knew but her about her birth father.
Well, that actually happened in my family. My father had a sister who was adopted, and Diane, and nobody told her she was adopted, but everybody knew. Everybody knew but me, because they knew that I'm a blabbermouth, because I used to go around telling everybody I was adopted, and it drove them crazy.
Look at me, everybody. I'm adopted.
It was I think it was mentioned once or twice, but never very much, because they knew that I couldn't keep a secret, obviously. And it wasn't, and I'd forgotten about it. And when I went to meet my biological mother, way back in the late 80s, I was visiting my grandma, and she got very quiet, and we're having lunch or something, and she said, Julie, now that you've found your biological mother, you won't tell Diane that she's adopted, will you? And it all I was like, I'd completely forgotten about it. And
Really?
I said, of course not, but I can't believe she doesn't know, and, you know, I wouldn't, that's not my secret to tell.
Right.
And, but, you know, I reassured her. What my instinct was say, why didn't you tell her? What is wrong with you?
Right.
Not 2 weeks later, did my Aunt Diane get contacted by a half sibling. And it all was out in the open at that point.
That's a coincidence.
Well, you know, and gosh, I hope nobody thought that I had anything to do with that.
Especially that blabber. They're like, since
I'm
that
such
blabbermouth.
a blabbermouth. Yeah. Isn't that interesting, though? You open a door. I think when you talk about things, you open doors in the universe.
I will say, although I am fascinated by this story about Loretta Young and Clark Gable's daughter,
Yeah.
I think Uncommon Knowledge is a terrible title for that book.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because that doesn't say anything. You need to like say something in a title that says, you know,
It needs to be. It needs to be much more fantastical
Yeah.
or something than that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Something.
So at the time that she wrote the book, I guess it was published in 1994, Loretta Young had still not publicly acknowledged that this was a thing, that this is something that happened, even though everybody knew it. But she did acknowledge it just prior to her death in the year 2000.
Again, it's that shame and all that stuff, right?
Yeah, and she was, she was big time Catholic. At one point she was going to be a nun. I mean, she was Catholic.
Well,
3 times a Catholic.
Sometimes I hate to say it, and I have nothing against the Catholic Church.
Yes,
but,
you do.
Well, no, but I mean I don't really. But it seems to me that people who are brought up in any religion that is really restrictive,
Absolutely,
they tend to be the ones who will retaliate against it later or act out because of the repression. You know.
I will say this. I lived in high school. When I was in high school, I lived in a very religious town. There were churches on every corner. It was like the town in Footloose. And the only boys that ever tried to go all the way with me,
right.
or nobody ever tried to force anything, but
right.
there was certainly the boys who were the most adamant and really kind of wanted to get their way were the preacher's kids.
Well,
And that's just a fact, so come at me, guys. All right, should we take a break?
I think we should.
Yes, we should. Just let me finish. That was Uncommon Knowledge by Judy Lewis, and you can get it anywhere books are sold.
Thank you for listening to Cutoff Genes, the new podcast starring Julie Dixon Jackson.
All right, guys, it's story time.
This is my favorite part.
I know.
I love it.
Say that.
Mama likes her stories.
Me too. So this is Kari, and she is the second part of our, I think, 3-part, or maybe 4, little series of a single family reunion.
I love this idea of getting different perspectives from the same story, but like told from their point of view. It's really nice.
It's interesting.
Yes.
Yeah. It's interesting to edit too, because I'm like, oh, she said that and that. Anyway, so this is Kari, who is a daughter who was given up for adoption.
Okay.
That was found.
Okay, great.
And her mother was Anna, who we heard from last week.
Right. Okay. Let's listen.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to Story Time. We are here. Well, I'm here. You're not. You will be. With Kari, who is another member of our Rashomon-style adoption story, adoption DNA story that I'm attempting to tell on the podcast. Kari, thanks for taking my call.
Absolutely. I'm glad to be here.
I'm so glad you agreed to do this and everybody agreed to do this. I appreciate it. So you are an adoptee.
Yes.
And could you just tell us the story, start at the beginning, about your childhood, about when you found out you were adopted, etc.?
Okay, so I knew I was adopted from the very beginning. I was an infant, and I was about 2 weeks old, I think, when my parents brought me home. And my older sister had been adopted 3 years, no blood relation, of course, but had been adopted 3 years earlier. So, and my parents always made it really special to be adopted. I mean, they told us from the beginning. And so I have this thing as a child. This is how I thought it worked. Because my parents would always say, we didn't have to have just any old child. We got to go and pick you.
I had the same story.
And so I would imagine all of this, these rows and rows and rows of babies.
Me too.
I loved that. And, my parents walking up and down and looking at each one and then just pointing at me and saying, that one. I want that one.
Oh, my God. I have full body chills right now because that's almost exactly the story that I was told.
Oh, that's so funny.
Except my mother said that I was as wide as I was tall, and I looked up and smiled at her.
Oh.
Which made me feel fat, but, whatever.
You're square. Okay.
You're right. Okay, so go ahead.
And it was always special. So, they made it one of those things where, you know, my birth mother had given me up out of love because there was some reason why she couldn't take care of me. And we would have, each year we had something called a Chosen Day, which I've also heard called a Gotcha Day.
Yes.
And it's the anniversary, of course, of when they brought you home.
I prefer chosen than gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha sounds like you were stolen.
It does, kind of like I went out and grabbed you.
Yeah.
But,
yeah.
Yeah. And so it was Chosen Day. And so on Chosen Day, we would have a little celebration. We would light a candle to say thank you to my birth mother.
Oh, that's wonderful.
And we would see, my life was books. I was a complete bookworm, and I would get to go and choose any book, appropriate book, of course, that I wanted.
Yay, nerds unite.
Oh, yeah.
I love it.
And my sister and I both, and hers was December 1st and mine was December 3rd.
Oh,
so
okay.
We usually had, that trip out would be, somewhere right in there. And the mom would inscribe in there, this is for Chosen Day, blah, 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 blah. We love you, Mom and Dad.
Oh, that's so sweet.
And yeah, the birthday was a bigger deal, but we would also a lot of times light candles.
Yep.
And say, thank you to my birth mom. And
so there was always an acknowledgement.
Always.
I love that.
Always.
Okay.
And it was always one of those things where they were grateful to her. They, appreciated her. They wanted me to know that, and they told me if in the future, if I ever wanted to try to find her, that they would support me and that they wouldn't have hurt feelings. They wouldn't be upset or jealous or, anything like that.
Yeah, that's lovely.
They would support me. And so, I always thought that I probably would, maybe when I turned 18 or something. And another thing that Mom and Dad and I and my sister, sometimes we would go to Omaha, which is where I was born,
mm-hmm.
and just be there because my mother once lived there. And we would just visit and maybe go shopping, or there's an old market area, things like that.
Yeah.
That just so. I think we visited Child Saving Institute, which is where the adoption, the place it went through. And
I love that they kept realized the importance of you knowing something about your past.
Yeah,
that's great.
It was never hidden. It was never. What's interesting though is that my sister had the same thing, but my sister always felt abandoned.
Yep.
Even though she had, my parents treated everything the exact same way, but she always felt like she was not wanted.
Yeah.
And she was given up because someone didn't want her. And I felt entirely different.
That was like that in my family too. My brother was, he never said that he felt abandoned, but I'm sure that's what he felt because he never wanted to talk about it at all. Mm. And so it clearly he is all but ignored that he's adopted his entire life, which is fine, which is up to him. Mm-hmm. But it's interesting how we're so different in that respect.
It is with the same exact upbringing.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
That happens in biological families too. So we have to acknowledge that. But I hear you. I know that the difference between my brother and I is stark. Mm-hmm. So, okay. So when did you decide that you wanted to search?
I had planned to, right after high school, and then I went to college, and then, that was busy. And then I planned to right after college, and I'd sent out some letters. I registered with some adoption boards online, registered with the International Sound X Reunion. Never got any response or anything that was even anywhere near a clue. I could hire a private detective or something. And I kind of dropped it because life really got in the way. And I was trying to help my sister search too and those things. And I never felt growing up like there was part of me that was missing a little bit, but I had a wonderful family who loved me, so I didn't feel like I was missing my family.
Yeah.
Because I had that.
I don't know if you're like me, but I felt like I knew that I was loved. I could intellectualize that I was loved.
Yes.
But there was still a hole there that I just knew I needed the answers.
Right. And I guess, too, as time went on, health things, but, I've always had really strange little weird quirks and such, with both my health and my ankle just turned for absolutely no reason.
Mine too.
Yeah, it's so weird, but
we're weak-ankled adoptees.
I tell you what. And I guess I think I always felt weird because people in my family didn't have that.
Right.
So here I'm walking along with everybody, and I'm the one that trips and falls.
Yeah. And I think being adopted just kind of shines a light on that. So every stark difference seems magnified because, it's because I'm adopted,
Exactly.
And you couldn't pinpoint. Like, I remember as a kid, looking at people and seeing how much they looked like their parents or didn't look like their parents, but at least you knew that, they were their parents. Whereas I wanted so much to see a connection, a physical connection.
That is it, exactly.
Yeah, but I couldn't because I knew that it wasn't possible. Even if I did, it was an imagined physical connection.
Yes.
Yeah.
That is probably the biggest hole is I just wanted, and I wasn't able to have children, wanted to. So we ended up adopting too.
Okay.
But my sister was able, she had children, and the characteristics were definitely visible. And it actually kind of hurt then because, I just really wanted to see someone with my nose or my ears or my hair or just something, that looks familiar.
Yep.
And when I was a little kid, like if I saw pictures of someone and I'd wonder, do they look like me? Oh, I wonder if, maybe they're related to me. And so that question was always there. I could walk by you on the street and we're related and I wouldn't know. But, and I just had the biggest longing to see someone who had some characteristic that would be like me. And one of the most amazing things, though, is that my biological mother, and I could be twins. It's such an amazing resemblance that it's spooky. It almost. And
that's
mannerisms
so gratifying, isn't it?
Oh, it's amazing.
Yeah. When I first got my pictures of my biological mother and all her siblings, I still couldn't see a resemblance. And that was kind of disappointing. There was a group picture of all of the siblings together and my grandparents, and I tried to pick out which one was me. I mean, which one was my mother. And it was the last one that I chose. Like I went, it's got to be her. Nope. Her. Nope. You know what I mean? So I never saw it. It wasn't until I met her and I saw pictures of us. Like there was a picture that had us both in profile and we had exactly the same profile.
Oh,
and I was like, there it is. Okay.
There it is. One kind of funny thing, just jumping around, my nephew, he was like, are you sure this isn't a scam? When I told him that, I'd made contact. And I was like, it's not a scam, it's from a DNA site. And he said, well, I don't know. How can you be absolutely positive it's not a scam? So I sent him a picture of my biological mother, in her 20s. And he wrote back and he said, oh, yeah, it's legit.
Yeah, it's not a scam. Right.
So I loved that. But
okay, so tell me about the day that you said, okay, I got to do something about this. Let's do a DNA test.
My father passed away in 2013.
Okay.
And then my mother had Alzheimer's. And my sister then very unexpectedly passed away in 2016.
Oh, my gosh.
As far as extended family, it was just the four of us.
Yeah.
And I already felt like Mom had left me in many ways
Sure.
with the Alzheimer's. I mean, she was partly there, but it had been going on for a long time. So, by the time that Melinda passed away, my sister, she was already in the memory care unit and was confusing me with her sister.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
And a lot of it too is just health stuff. And, you get to about, in the middle of your life and stuff, and you start realizing you gotta have this exam and you gotta have this exam. And you start
these are things that it would be nice to know.
Yeah. And the first thing I did was the 123andMe.
23andMe.
23andMe.
Yeah.
Thank you. I knew that they would have they tested for some of those genetic genes and stuff like that. So, just the breast cancer genes, the, dementia, just some of those things. And it's not a guarantee one way or the other.
Right.
But I thought, well, let me at least have this because I need to take different steps with my health if it comes back that I have some of these markers. And I knew that there was a possibility that, I might find people. My primary thing at that moment was, to look for the health information. And I got back the results. And there's a place, that you can obviously expand and look for people who are related. And so I did that. And the closest I had was like a couple of second cousins. Okay. And I realized I was incredibly disappointed. It was really good news as far as the genetic health markers, but there was just a couple of people. And so I reached out to, some of the people who were related to me. And I've gotten to know some great, third and fourth cousins who, knew nothing about anything. And
what about those second cousins? Did you ever get a chance to talk to them?
He didn't reply, but I started stalking them on Facebook.
Sure, as you do. Yeah.
As you do. And I figured out who their mother was. And I figured if they were second cousins, their mother might be my first cousin. And I contacted her and just said, hey, this is really wild and out of the blue. And she was wonderful. I mean, she replied right away. And she says, I said the background that I needed. My mother had been a nurse. It had been at this time period. She lived in Omaha. And she said, well, gosh, there's a lot of women on our side who are nurses. Then she said, well, she was going on vacation or something. She said, let me just look around a little bit and see if I can figure some stuff out. She was awesome. And she was going to do the test too, she and her husband. And so then that would say if it was her that was related or her husband who was related. So I'm scouring.
Oh, wait a minute. So the children came back as second cousins.
Yes, it was her children.
So she was probably a first cousin.
That's what I was hoping for.
Okay. I see.
Stalking on their Facebook page, I was finding out. Okay, here's who their mother is.
Right.
She happened to have a business, so I messaged her.
Okay.
All of that crazy stuff.
All that stuff you do.
Yeah, exactly. And I was going through, all of her Facebook and looking for any pictures with anybody. Could this be my mother? Could this be, some sort of family connection? And I got kind of obsessed with it, just in a little ways. And I wasn't getting anywhere, but I would have, because right about the same time that I got back my ancestry results, when I decided to go ahead and do that, she realized that there was a resemblance between me and my mother, Anna.
Okay.
And suddenly, really, she had just found some old pictures of Anna and thought, oh my gosh,
yeah,
yes, there is. There's
Right.
a huge resemblance here.
Right.
And it would have happened that way.
Sure.
Too. Yeah, it was amazing. And then she was going to reach out to, I guess, my biological uncle to see if he knew if Anna had a baby. I just thought it would be great if I could meet somebody or two, maybe say hello, just say thank you. I had a wonderful life. It's been fantastic.
Yeah.
And thank you so much for what you did for me. So, and I was telling this woman who was related to my mother that, and she was like, okay, great. I'll pass that on and all of that. So I did Ancestry, then because I didn't have the answers I wanted. And the day that it came back, there were two people who were a match.
Mm-hmm.
And one of them was a real close match, and that was my sister Jessica.
Right.
So I just messaged her. I didn't know who she was, and I just messaged her. And well, I'd also already heard back from Suzette. Suzette was the mother to my 4% matches over on 23andMe,
mm-hmm.
who had said that my biological mother's name was Anna.
Oh, okay.
I had heard back that most likely was the case. And
Gotcha.
So Jessica responded almost immediately and said, let me ask you a few questions. And
mm-hmm.
so she, birthday, where did you grow up? And she said, well, I don't know how to tell you this, but I'm your sister.
Wow.
And yeah. So I'm emotional. A little emotional over here.
Sure.
It was just like, oh, just like that? What?
Yeah.
Just like that?
How wonderful that there was an opportunity for her to tell you as opposed to you having to break it to her.
Yeah. And she knew. And she said, we've been looking for you. And we didn't know how else to find you. And she told me, the family. And I said, is your mother's name Anna? And she said, yes, it's Anna. And so I then knew that it had come full circle. So I knew then that my other lead through 23andMe would have ended up bringing me to the same place. But this was so much better.
Yeah, yeah. You got to have that aha moment.
Yeah, that just where the floor drops out from under you. And you have to sit down suddenly and say, oh my gosh.
Yeah, this is it that's happening.
This is it. It's true. It's really happening. And so then she said, well, I'm going to tell my mom, and I said, is that going to be okay? And she said, oh yeah, she's going to be very happy.
Oh.
And so that made me feel good. And this is jumping around, but what's really, really funny is when I was a little girl, very little girl, like 3 or 4, I had a doll. And I named the doll Jessica.
Uh-huh.
And Jessica went everywhere with me.
Aww.
And I told people that Jessica was my younger sister. And my older sister, Melinda was not happy about that. She's like, that's a doll. That is not your sister. I'm your sister. And I was like, no, Jessica is my sister. Jessica contacted me, and that was really weird that I had just named it all the same thing. And I think I'd gotten her the same Christmas about when Jessica would have been a baby that year.
Ugh.
It was just weird.
Yeah.
It was strange. It was a few hours later, then I was talking with Anna, my birth mom.
Wow.
And it was an unbelievable day.
Did you get a heads up, or you don't know?
Yeah, I got a heads up. We messaged a moment. She said, oh, can I call you? Is that okay? If it's too soon, I won't. I said, no, that's fine. And she said, all right, can I call you around this time? And I said, sure. And so then I'm just sitting there like shaking.
Yeah.
And sure enough, the phone rings and I heard my own voice, basically.
Oh, wow.
And it was bizarre.
Yeah.
And I think I just burst into tears. If I didn't immediately, I did within minutes.
Yeah.
It was just surreal. And
had you seen a picture of her yet?
Suzette, the cousin through 23andMe, she had sent me a picture, but I couldn't tell a lot in that picture because of the hairstyle.
Right.
One of the first things that she said to me was that she needed to ask and know did I know the Lord?
Uh-huh.
And I think I said something like, well, of course. And she said, well, it isn't always of course for people.
Yeah.
And I could hear someone in the background there saying, does she? So I think she was with my brother and his family at the time, and they were like wondering too,
Uh-huh.
And I said, well, yes, I was raised in the church, and my grandfather was a minister in the church, and absolutely. And she was like, oh, hallelujah.
Yeah, that was a relief for her, I'm sure. Because had your parents told you that it was important to her that you were raised in a Christian household?
They didn't know that.
Interesting.
We didn't have that much information. We knew that she was a nurse. We knew her rough age. We knew that the body type that fit mine exactly. You know, I was 5'4". You know, my biological mom was 5'4". Blonde hair.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we knew those things,
Yeah.
but we didn't know anything other than she was studying to be a nurse.
Right. Okay.
So, you know, no clue. It happened that way, which was awesome.
Yeah.
And the adoption agency that we went through was actually a Disciples of Christ adoption agency.
Okay.
So that may
Pretty much guaranteed.
Yeah, how the social worker got me there, or whatever it was, and however it worked, got me there, knowing that most likely I would be, you know, end up in a Christian home.
Okay, that was Kari.
That's so interesting, especially after hearing her birth mother, you know, talk last week. Mm-hmm. I love this.
You know, I haven't listened to them both together yet, but we have a little chat going on Facebook, and they were saying how much Anna sounds like Kari.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
So I thought that was
That's
interesting.
so weird
and
how
she
that
also
happens.
looks just like her apparently, which is very cool.
That's so strange.
Anyway, so next week I'm going to cover the two sisters.
Oh my God. Both of them at once.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Going to do a little mashup.
Mashup.
Yeah. So we have that to look forward to. Hey, let's get out of here.
Where are we going to go? Let's not go have a sidecar.
Please.
Yeah, I don't want that now that it sounded better when I didn't know what it was.
Yeah, I did.
Right? But now.
They're just like, you know what? I love the idea of martinis, but I want them to taste like an olive.
Well, you can get it like a dirty martini.
Nope. I clearly just don't like martinis. Yeah. So I like the idea.
You like holding the glass dramatically.
It looks fabulous. Yeah. Anyway, hey, let's tell people about us.
Okay, I am Richard Castle. I'm a songwriter and a musician, pianist, and I have a website, richardcastle.com, when I am not podcasting with Julie. And you can also follow me on the Twitter at Castle Songs.
And I'm Julie Dixon Jackson. On the Twitter, I am at Jules Jackson with 2 O's. Find the podcast at Twitter at Cutoff Jeans Podcast. We have a Facebook group, the Cutoff Jeans Podcast. The Cutoff Jeans Podcast, whatever. And various and sundry ways of contacting us. I'm sure you can figure it out by now. Also, hey, guys, thanks so much for your support and for reaching out to us with your great stories. Please continue to do so. Also, please continue to share the podcast with people. We're growing, which is wonderful to see and very exciting because that's our goal.
You know, I'm growing too, and that's why I look at my pants and how tight they're getting. And actually, I'm wearing jeans today, so it might be helpful to say...
Your jeans are so tight because the truth is in your jeans.